Hi everyone, Mr. Lansing here, and welcome back. I hope that you had a very nice winter break. For the third quarter, we will be covering two standards, and both standards are trigonometry standards. We will be starting our discussion with the six trigonometric functions, and I believe you have known the 3 out of 6 of these functions. And after that, we will talk about the unit circle. It may take around 4 weeks for us to cover this first standard. Start with our lesson. We're going over the 3 basic trigonometric functions that you might have known when you were in your geometry classes. For those who have not fully understood this or who may have not remembered anything about this concept, this is the best time for us to recall the 3 basic trigonometric ratios, namely the sine, cosine, and tangent. Sine is abbreviated as sin, but we don't read it as sin, but still sine. Cosine is abbreviated as cos, but we still read it as cosine. And tangent is abbreviated as tan, but we normally read it as tangent. Now I want you to consider the right triangle illustrated at the right side of this page. Right triangle ACB. Right triangle ACB has legs measuring 3 units long, 4 units long, and a hypotenuse which measures 5. So for every right triangle, the 2 shorter sides are called legs, while the longest side in front of the right angle is called the hypotenuse. But as we consider any of the 2 acute angles in the right triangle, the legs changes its name into adjacent or opposite based on how they appear in the figure. So as we consider angle B this time, 4 and 3 are still legs, but they have special names. So 4 is adjacent, which is very close to the angle, and 3 is opposite, right in front of your angle, which is used as your reference, while 5 is always the hypotenuse and it will never change its name. As we consider angle A this time, the 2 legs of the right triangle also changes its name. This time, opposite to angle A is the side measuring 4 units, and this side is your opposite side, while 3 is adjacent to angle A. And like what happened to angle B earlier, 5 remains as your hypotenuse and it will never change. Now let us solve the 3 basic trigonometric ratios based on our reference angle, this time angle B. So we'll write down sine of angle B, cosine of angle B, and tangent of angle B. So take note that for every trigonometric function, sine, cosine, and tangent, they're always associated with any of the 2 acute angles of the right triangle. So this time we're using angle B as our reference angle. So when we're looking for the sine of angle B, sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, which is given here. That should be equal to opposite of angle B is 3, hypotenuse is 5, so sine of angle B is 3 over 5. Now let's go into cosine of angle B. So as we consider angle B as your reference, 4 becomes your adjacent, and it's adjacent over hypotenuse, and adjacent is 4 over 5 hypotenuse, so cosine of angle B should be equal to 4 over 5. While tangent of angle B, based on the formula, is opposite leg over adjacent. So with respect to angle B, our opposite is 3, so opposite over adjacent, that gives you 3 over 4. So tangent of angle B as a fraction is 3 over 4. Now, as we consider angle A as your reference angle this time, so when we solve for sine of angle A, cosine of angle A, and tangent of angle A, then we're going to make sure that the sides that we're picking is correct. So with respect to angle A, and we're solving for sine, that will be equal to opposite over hypotenuse. That should be 4 over 5. So sine of angle A is equal to 4 over 5. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and in this case, with respect to angle A, adjacent is 3, and hypotenuse is 5, so that should be 3 over 5. And lastly, tangent of angle A is opposite over adjacent, and that gives you 4, the opposite side of A, and adjacent, which is 3, or 4 over 3. So tangent of angle A is equal to 4 over 3. You might be thinking that it's too hard to memorize the 3 basic trigonometric ratios because there are so many things to consider. But we're going to help you with that with this mnemonic device, SAW, CA, TOA. So when we say SAW, it means sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so it's O over H. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so it's A over H. And tangent is opposite over adjacent, or O over A. So this will actually help you remember that SAW, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent opposite over adjacent. But we already know how to memorize the 3 basic trigonometric functions. It is the best time for us to know 3 more. So there are actually not only 3 trigonometric functions, but there are 6. But what you have understood in your geometry classes are the 3 basic, and now we're going to introduce the 3 reciprocals. So sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, O over H. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent opposite over adjacent. You don't have to panic in memorizing the 3 reciprocals because they are just simply flipped over values of the fractions used for the 3 basic. So for sine, its reciprocal is cosecant, and instead of O over H, it's given as H over O. For cosine, its reciprocal is secant, and instead of A over H, it is given as H over A. And for tangent, its reciprocal is cotangent, and it's given in A over O. Now let us apply what we just learned about the 6 trigonometric ratios, sine, cosine, and tangent for the basic, and for the reciprocal, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. Make sure you have your notebooks ready so you can actually make use of those as your reference as we answer this type of problem. So let's consider this right triangle having sides 8, 15, and 17, and the legs are 8 and 15, hypotenuse is 17. Let's label one of each angle using a Greek letter this time, which is theta. So we'll be using this symbol to represent any angle that we used for our trigonometric function. So with respect to angle theta, let's find the following ratios or functions. So sine of angle theta, cosine of angle theta, and tangent of angle theta. So let's find the 3 basic first. So we have sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so opposite over hypotenuse, cosine adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent opposite over adjacent. So based on this figure and with respect to angle theta, sine is opposite, that will be 15, and hypotenuse is 17. So the answer is 15 over 17. So for cosine of theta, that's adjacent is 8, that's near to the angle, over the hypotenuse of 17, so that should be 8 over 17. While tangent of angle theta is opposite 15 over adjacent, that's 8, so tangent of theta is 15 over 8. Now let us find the 3 reciprocal trigonometric functions cosecant of angle theta, secant of angle theta, and cotangent of angle theta. So cosecant is the opposite of sine, so that should give you hypotenuse over opposite. Secant is hypotenuse over adjacent, and cotangent adjacent over the opposite. So based on our figure, so hypotenuse will be 17, and opposite of angle theta is 15, so 17 over 15, which is just a flipped value of your sine. So secant theta is hypotenuse, that will be 17 over adjacent, which is 8. So 17 over 8, which is also a flipped value of 8 over 17 for your cosine. And cotangent of angle theta is just the reciprocal of tangent. So we have cotangent is adjacent 8 over 15, And this is also just a reciprocal of 15/8. Now let us consider the second acute angle of this right triangle that I now labeled angle alpha, which is this angle. So with respect to this angle, 15 becomes your adjacent, 8 becomes your opposite, 17 remains to be your hypotenuse. Now I'm going to find some random trigonometric ratios or functions based on angle alpha. So I'm looking for sine of angle alpha. So since sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, with respect to the reference angle alpha, my opposite side is 8 and my hypotenuse remains to be 17, so the answer is 8/17. So if I'll find one reciprocal trigonometric function, let's look for cotangent of angle alpha. So cotangent is equal to the reciprocal of tangent. If tangent is opposite over adjacent, then cotangent should be adjacent over the opposite. So our adjacent in this case is 15, our opposite is 8, so cotangent of angle alpha is 15/8. So just to have a short recall on the 6 trigonometric ratios, you only have to memorize SOH, SAW, CAH, CA, and TOA, TOA. So sine, cosine, and tangent. And when you flip these ratios, you will be having cosecant, secant, and cotangent.